Hello, I'm horror cartoonist Dennis St. John. I draw monsters and write twisted tales. As you can imagine, I was a little obsessed with Buffy the Vampire Slayer. Lucky for me, so were most of my high school friends, all except one. One friend who stubbornly refused to join the Scoobies. So here we all are, 20-some-odd years later. I'm teaming up with Doc Travis, John, Teach Landis, and maybe a special guest or two, and we're going to make our friend, Michael Poley, watch one episode of Buffy a week until he's no longer the Buffy Virgin. Welcome to Buffy Virgin, a spoiler-free Buffy the Vampire Slayer podcast. It's season 6, and Buffy's back. We're watching Bargaining Part 2. Before we get started, can I ask everyone listening to please subscribe and rate us and all that crap? We really appreciate it. I'm your host, cartoonist Dennis St. John. Why don't you guys introduce yourselves with your most fun activity you did this week?
My name's John. I recently explored the Crystal Palace Dinosaur Park, which apparently is the oldest dinosaur exhibit in the world. So it's what dinosaurs look like according to the Victorians, which generally seems to be fat in the neck. That is Victorians' view on dinosaurs. That's what I've learned.
I'm so jealous. I would love to have gone to that.
My name is Travis, and I went to the Cornell Glee Club and Choir concert in Portland, which was great. Go Cornell.
My name's Michael. I'm the virgin. I've only seen Buffy up to season 6, episode 2, and I went to go see a Star Trek The Next Generation themed improvised musical that was 2 hours long. It was both amazing and too long.
Oh my God. Going to see a performance and it's like improvised and a musical and 2 hours. That's 3 strikes, you're out.
And Star Trek.
But Star Trek makes up for all of it.
You know, it made me want to watch Star Trek because it was so, they were so delighted by all of the content that they were performing. And I heard so many hot takes about Star Trek while I was there. Just in the background. Deep Space Nine gets good. Star Trek Voyager gets good.
Next Gen starts good, stays good. No. It takes a season.
I don't know about starts good. Yeah, it takes a couple seasons.
All right. So we're going to be talking season 6, episode 2. But first, we're going to do reactions to season 5, episode 17, Forever, known as the episode after the body. John, why don't you read the first one?
Okay, so Ivana Klitsch says, and you forgot to mention that Jennifer Grey is a wife of Clark Gregg, so everything is in the Whedonverse.
I'm very interested in Clark Gregg maybe having multiple wives based on this. Is a wife?
I completely forget who's Jennifer Grey and who's Clark Gregg. I have no idea who these people are.
Before Travis explodes with that, why don't you read the Ren and Oz response?
Yes, Ren and Oz says, I'm going to need a full month of recovery from my abject horror at your lack of appropriate Joel Grey fanning out, most especially for the largest reaction being in relation to his parentage of Jennifer Grey rather than, and not his decades-long genre-forming work in the theater.
Oh, of course. So I remember this. Joel Grey is the guy who plays the warlock with the serpent tongue, and Jennifer Grey is the lady who was in Ferris Bueller's Day Off and Dirty Dancing, who's his daughter. We discussed this at the time. I remember that now.
Yeah.
This summary made me laugh. Also the predictions. Quote, Buffy's going on a journey. Wait, did he predict the very next episode? She's going to Europe. Never mind. You know what? She might have. Who knows? You know, Michelle Trachtenberg apparently was in Eurotrip. So Some of these summers like to travel every now and then. Oh, regarding the more philosophical topics of tonight's discussion, you guys should really cover Dollhouse when you're done with Buffy.
By the time this episode airs, the other podcast I'm on, The Nevers, will have had a Dollhouse-themed episode, which I don't think I'm going to be on. But if you want to hear some Dollhouse talk, you can go to that. I kind of took myself off of it because I was like...
Yeah.
dissenting opinion on this.
Dollhouse might be the Voyager of Joss Whedon shows.
And this one
I
is
like
from,
how that's like, we should all know what that means. It's great.
Kind of sucks, I guess is what I'm trying to say.
but people like it.
No, I've been assured that Voyager is very good.
So I Want to Klitsch had a really long and interesting comment, and I do recommend over on YouTube that you go see it, but it was kind of full of spoilers, so I trimmed it down a little. Iwana says, I really never understand the tradition of giving people food around funeral. We don't have it in Poland, so I only see it on TV shows. Like, why do you do this? But we probably would be eating some salad because we always eat potato salad. It's like Polish traditional food for traditional events. Also, binging your podcast. I found it a couple weeks ago, so I'm pretty new. So thank you for binging that.
Wow.
Also, Willow in this episode. Not the first time in the show. I really sometimes think that she has some mental problems. Like, why did she even give Dawn this idea? Sometimes Willow acts like she doesn't understand other people's feelings, and she's not from an abusive alcoholic family. She doesn't have PTSD or depression, but it's getting worse from season to season. It's a weird trope from Joss. Like, if someone is a genius, they're also a crazy genius with a flaw in their mental state. Like pretty much all geniuses in the series. It's weird. Does Joss not like them? Or is it the Hellmouth power that makes something happen with them? So there was more, but I kind of trimmed it.
That's a great take on Willow. Absolutely. Well, I would say that, she's not necessarily from an abusive family. But her family situation is a little bit weird.
Yeah.
It's a little kind of neglecting / underparented.
Maybe be experimented.
Yeah.
Her mom treats her kid like an experiment a little.
A little bit, yeah. But that's a super interesting take.
At Susie Bean said, I watched this.
Susie Lima Bean.
Thank you. That makes so much more sense. Says, I watched this last night after picking myself up off the floor after the body and thought the same. It didn't seem very hard to get the eggs compared to some of the other creatures they battled, and the reward could be massive. Strange, but I think time was a factor in this episode. Yeah, I think you're right. So thank you for that. So thanks everybody for writing to us, and we really appreciate it. And feel free to write more. All right, now let's move back into bargaining part 2. We'll do a summary for the episode and find out what happened.
The summary.
You're Buffy Summers, and you were just having the best time. Being dead? Now you're resurrected, underground, by your inconsiderate friends. Punching your way to the surface, you find you can't even get a good cup of coffee because the espresso pump is on fire. Demon biker gangs have taken over and it's the end of the world, but the start of a new in Season 6, Bargaining Part 2.
All right, thank you. Let's do great lines.
Great lines.
I laughed out loud when I heard this great one with it was an interaction between the big demon, like motorcycle gang member leader and Xander. Demon says, "Big axe you got there." Xander says, "All the better to cut you down to size, Grandma." And like just Xander's awesome confidence just sold that so hard, and that was that was just a great line. And then even in the midst of the insanity of Dawn's confrontation with Buffy, trying to get Buffy from killing herself again, Dawn says, "This tower was built by crazy people. I don't think it's holding up very well." And this tower was built by crazy people. The fact that it's still up is nuts. So in this this junkyard world is, oh man. And she called it out just as I was thinking it. I'm like, what are they doing?
I enjoyed Xander's line where he says, "I happen to be a very powerful man witch." which I think, little known fact, this is actually paid product placement from Manwich, the canned meat company.
It's also the second sandwich joke in a row. There was a sandwich joke in the first episode, and now in part one, and now there's
I like sandwich.
yeah. He ate like 5 sandwiches. I liked when Xander said, "Do fireflies bite? No, they probably burn." And that was just a cute joke. Incidentally, parts of the United States say lightning bug instead of firefly, but it would still probably work.
That's our part. You say lightning bug in Ohio. I grew up saying lightning bug.
I said firefly.
Yeah,
But I
You guys
now
grew up a couple blocks away from each other, so
It was at the dividing line.
it was right in like Centerville.
languages.
It was like right Centerville Kettering divide. That's a North Dayton thing. That was right. It was right in North Dayton.
It does seem like we're all choosing Xander lines this episode for some reason. So good on
know.
Xander. I chose demons. Now there's something you don't see every day, unless you're us. And I also picked the Buffy's line, "Is this hell?" Thanks for summarizing the show, Buffy. All right, let's do the kill count.
The kill count.
So we have 6 demons killed on screen, 1 robot, and I'm calling various inanimate objects ranging from a tower to a mailbox and many shops in between. All right, guys, let's jump into it. Let's do weird noticing the trivia.
Weird noticings.
So right away, I mean, we may have addressed this a little bit last episode, but they really didn't think through this resurrection. No one even brought a shovel. So they really, their plan was to resurrect Buffy in the ground and then wait for her to dig her way out. Like, did they think that she was going to just suddenly appear magically? I think that's what they must have thought.
I think that's what they expected, yeah.
And maybe if you complete the ritual correctly, there's a little bit of a teleportation thing at the end, like a little magic gimmick. Like resurrecting the person, that's very important. Then the last bit is just the like teleport out of the ground thing that they missed.
Yeah. Yeah, do you think if it wasn't interrupted, they'd just be staring at the grave for a while and eventually it would click in them like, oh shit, we should dig this up?
They would hear her hitting the coffin or whatever.
I mean, it takes a few hours for her to get out, right? It's like maybe an hour or 2 hours, right, for her to, crawl her, like rip her way out of the ground. I think that's enough time for you to second guess yourself, even if you pull this spell off.
Yeah.
So
I mean, it's also more than enough time to suffocate.
Right. It only works if you resurrect a superhuman. Like if one of us got resurrected in the ground, we're just gonna die a second time, just slowly, like in that movie
that's
Buried or
nightmare
whatever.
fuel right there.
You're resurrected, but you're underground. Thanks, team.
It's like Poe going on, man. I feel sad, very sad for the Buffy bot in this episode. It's a tough life out there for an AI, man.
Totally.
And I just also wanted to call out, this is the first episode of the show ever without Anthony Stewart Head.
Wow. Yeah, you really miss him too. Like I really feel like what is Giles thinking? I mean, we talked about this last episode. What is Giles thinking going back now? Because like they really could have used him.
Oh, he didn't know.
I know, but he probably should have known.
Yeah. Knowing those dummies. He really, yeah, I feel like he should have stepped up. Really should have stepped up on Dawn duty, and he didn't.
Yeah.
No, if he's there, that means they have to solve the problem. I mean, this is the only way to have all this chaos in town is if Dad's out of town.
This is the kind of behavior you do when, Dad's out of town, and you're just a bunch of dumb 20-year-olds trying to raise a kid on your own.
I was kind of watching this and wondering, like, Buffy is resurrected, and then she kind of like freaks out looking at her own tombstone and stuff. But like, knowing that Buffy is a bit of a fashionista, I wonder how she feels about the clothes she was buried in, because it's like it's an outfit you definitely don't choose for yourself. and they chose to bury her in all black, which I thought was an interesting choice. I don't know. I feel like at a funeral everybody wears black, but does the corpse?
Like she's mourning herself.
Yeah. Anyway, I just was wondering, how do you think Buffy would have felt about that? I don't know.
Like
enough.
if Buffy was in her rational mind at the time.
Yeah.
Yeah, I would have liked to have seen like a classic Buffy like sarcastic quip about it.
She's in no mood for quips.
They buried her in heels. That's all I have to
Yeah.
say. So it's like the worst outfit to wake up in. You can't really run that well.
Well, yeah. I mean, you can't really argue that it was impractical at the time.
Well, her friends who were probably thinking of resurrecting probably should have made some cooler, some more sane burial choices. But
I don't know if it's super respectful though to bury somebody like Buffy in like combat boots, you know.
Well, maybe not boot, maybe just flats. I don't know.
No, Barry B. right in full Kevlar with a walkie-talkie in case there's any new orders that come in.
Speaking of combat boots and walkie-talkies, does Riley know that Buffy is dead? Probably not.
No.
He has no idea.
He's
You know, it
still
used
out
to be
in South America.
Speaking of this whole situation Buffy's gotten herself into, and I didn't write this down, but I just thought of it. There used to be a thing in gravestones, and you can still see them in like cemeteries in Vermont, of like a bell that is attached way back down to the coffin. So if the person is buried alive, they can ring. That's very intense.
That
I needed
only
that.
exists to frighten children, so you can have a little string off the side. That's the only thing.
Yeah.
It's
There's
so
also occasionally like a viewing window, like a big thick piece of glass that goes all the way down.
I guess we could solve this nowadays. Just bury them with a cell phone and like a freaking backup battery.
They're not going to get any reception, dog.
Yeah, what happens when the service stops?
Dude, cremation 100% solves this problem completely. This obsession with the physical body is insane.
Cremation solves so many problems. Oh, but then Buffy could have jumped out of like an urn, like a lamp, like a genie when they resurrected her.
Yeah.
Yeah, do they need the physical body for the resurrection? I mean, not to be...
I mean, if she can come back, she was like super rotted from the effects at the end of the last episode. I feel like if she can come back from that, she can probably come back from a pile of ashes.
Yeah.
You don't need much.
What are the limits of magic? What are the limits of God?
But if you like have scattered the ashes, then where is the location? Is it like equidistant of all the individual ash particles?
Ooh, then you just get her favorite outfit, and then you lay it on a bed, and then she'll just magically appear into the favorite outfit.
Right, right, and then the Mad Magazine version is you just put a bra on the bed, and then they appear, right?
Well, not that, but
I really like the scene where Willow is just telling Xander about how, well, she's just coming to the conclusion that Buffy can't come back, and like everyone else has kind of like gone through this already, but it's really interesting and a great scene to see Willow traumatized by the fact that she can't bring Buffy back and she's powerless. And gotta say the acting on that, the performance, that's just an amazing scene. So well done. Such a needed scene too, given, no one's really, we had like a moment after Buffy died in the episode of last season where there's kind of a group reaction shot where Spike is really like weeping on the ground. And then here we really get, Allison Hannigan, just top notch. She's fantastic in that scene. And yeah, Buffy's gone, Xander. She's not coming back. Like, it's beautiful.
Yeah, it's amazing how you can put off grief if you're a magician. Yeah, that was a solid scene. I liked when Spike absentmindedly grabs a cross. What a dum-dum.
Yeah, that was great.
That was like, they actually got the sound effect perfect too. It really sold the joke. It was amazing. Versus later, there's like a Molotov cocktail thing that someone throws at the house and just like it has like a little plasma sound to it. Like that sound effect worked. Molotov sound effect a little off. Oh yeah. Speaking of Molotovs, what is this demon gang's plan? I'm just going to ask generally. I know this could be a question for the group, but like, what is this plan?
They're just on your basic crush, kill, destroy, right?
But they also want to set up shop. Like, it's their new home, they say.
It is funny that like I don't see the economics of this working out. Like they just smash shit. They're not into the looting. Like you see them smashing into a store and then like burning the books. Like
Yeah.
I mean, they smashed the mailbox, so clearly there's going to be no communication of any kind in this world, right?
no postal service.
Yeah, totally. It just feels like a bunch of kids like getting loose. Like I feel like this version of a motorcycle gang is really disappointing because it doesn't want to read into like the kind of the drug mule gang or like the kind of like setting up a drug factory. I don't know, just whatever I think like a gang might do. I think in this show, at least the conception of gang intelligence is super low. I think just across the board. And so it's like, oh, you're a gang. That means you're like, it's like 100 Dennis the Menaces just going loose in a town.
Well, I mean, I explicitly didn't want to talk about this, but there is the horrifying rape threat that they make that is really gross and terrifying.
Oh yeah,
And really like takes the episode down a notch.
I did have that down later.
Oh, do you? Okay, we can get to that later then.
I mean, we can talk
Yeah,
about it now.
that's why the gang isn't that impressive because it's so phony, right? It's so like a level 1 gang. And there's like no plans. It doesn't capture any of the real terror of the gang. This is like if you think about it, it would be like a marauding horde. That's kind of what it is, but
I mean, the thing of them being level 1 though, I kind of like that because it's like this is a level 1 threat, but the team is lacking Buffy, so they're like, they're kind of fucked because they're off their two biggest hitters are down, right? So it's like, how does this group that doesn't have like any super strength deal with it? I mean, that's not exactly what you meant by level 1, I know,
Right.
but.
I kind of like it because I think one of the things we discussed before was that like how like, or at least for me, like how much good has Buffy really been doing all this time? Because she's defending Sunnydale, but she's the only Slayer in the world, and Sunnydale's this little tiny town, and how much good is she really doing in the world? But it's very clear that she has been doing a lot because this is impending doom has been there this whole time. And I think like my headcanon is that like Buffy had to be in Sunnydale because that was the moment when the Master was rising, and he sort of like opened the Hellmouth a bit, and these demons were interested in Sunnydale because it's an open Hellmouth, but like they wouldn't have been interested in it in 1993.
Yeah,
but they are interested in
too
it
closed,
now.
I guess.
Yeah, exactly.
Well,
and so like
and
Buffy
also,
like
I
came there
think-
at the right time.
Well, I also think for 100 years or whatever, the mayor has been in control, and
Right.
Not that he's been doing good, but
Right,
he's
but
been
it's a power
keeping
vacuum.
order.
Yeah, it's like
Yeah.
why you don't kill Saddam Hussein.
Yeah,
Yeah,
and that's the state Sunnydale's in now.
right. That makes sense.
So that makes
it's a failed
Buffy
state.
like the occupying.
Sunnydale's a failed state right now.
Well,
Yeah.
Giles would have been the successor, but
The technocrat to
when he's
to,
out of town, there's
to
nobody
succeed.
in there, which feels very irresponsible, as we've said, for Giles to have left.
I mean, I kind of like the look of these demons also, which I know is not the thing, but like they always, every single time, always remind me of the aliens from Star Trek Insurrection, because they're pulling back their cheeks.
They're both
like,
into the face stretching technology.
Yeah.
Absolutely. Yeah.
I'm trying to live
I
forever.
feel. But
Yeah, they're like if the Cenobites and Star Trek Insurrection aliens formed a gang together.
Well, this
so for
demon
the three
gang is,
people still listening.
this demon gang is basically like one highly charismatic leader and a bunch of miscreant demons that do his bidding, is what it feels like. And I really love, though, I mean, the point of it is to set up that the POV for Buffy when she comes back and she's walking through Sunnydale and it's just obliterated. And it's like, well, what did I come back to? Where am I? Am I in hell? Right? Like, and I love that. I love that setup. And they really do a good job of giving you her emotional state of, you know, that confusion and then like that blurred vision when she's come back. Like she can't even make things out. She's got this kind of beer bad acting she's doing. You know, I've seen this kind of cave woman character, but it really fits a lot better here. than I think it ever really made sense in Beer Bad. Like, it really fits here for that style of acting. So I think she really pulls off that weirdness. And then, you get to follow her perspective through it, and it's a mess. It's fantastic.
Yeah, and one of the first human faces she sees is her own as she's torn apart. That's fucking weird. That's like, oh yeah, no, I'm in hell. I get it. I'm putting these pieces together.
I like how in the middle of all this, one of the demon guys makes a joke about witches pulling a rabbit out of a hat, and like Anya freaks out, like, wait, don't do that. Like in the middle of everything going wrong, Anya's still terrified of rabbits.
Yeah, it's great. Yeah, Anya is great this episode just because she's like, no matter what terrible thing is happening, it's not going to affect her personality too much. Like, she's still afraid of rabbits and is like, when can I tell people about this engagement?
And I want to protect my goods, aka the magic shop. Like,
yeah,
it's great.
Well, right out the gate, I mean, this 2 episodes are insanely strong, and like the emotional punches in this episode are great. I love the apology to Buffy for bringing her back. We didn't know. We're sorry. Like, they put it together that they didn't dig her out, that she had to like crawl out of the grave. I mean, that whole confrontation with, basically the whole gang and discovering that it's not Buffy, but it's Buffy is amazing. Just such a beautiful scene. It really, like, I don't know. There's so many great moving scenes in this, like about how fucked up a decision that was.
yeah.
Oh, I love it.
Yeah, I think one thing that's interesting as this show goes on, and like the gap between the characters' ages and the actors' ages is like more pronounced, is like they look like adults. They look like adults making decisions, but you have to be like, these are like 20-year-olds making insane life choices, right?
No, when you're 20, you always resurrect your friend.
Yeah.
Oh yeah, absolutely.
But it's funny though that like in the world of Dungeons and Dragons where I live, right? There's resurrection is really like super common that happens. Like, oh, we got bring them back to life because they died and they want to come back, and like there's often no negative consequence associated with it. It's just like it's like the reset button. They're back. They remember everything that happened. But it just I like how messed up they really make resurrection here in a way that profoundly different than I think the way they treat supernatural kinds of materials. And even on this show, I feel like their rules about this kind of thing are off, but like they really messed up here, and it feels it's just wonderful to spend a little time with the reality of how weird that stuff is. You live in a world of demons, but you act like you don't, and then you resurrect somebody and you're like, oh, maybe we did mess up. I mean, there's that fine line, but they really it's so good.
Yeah. Have you read any of the manga Delicious in Dungeon? Because it kind of plays with that. It's this manga where it's like the basic concept is it's almost like a D&D party, and it's kind of explicitly like people are always going into this one dungeon to collect treasure, and like they form groups that are similar. The series begins with somebody in the party is eaten by a dragon, and people run out, and then they're like, well, we can resurrect them. We just need to like make sure they're not digested first. So, but it's okay. Dragons digest people really slowly, so we have a lot of time to go resurrect them. But in the meantime, we'll go back in, and they learn to eat things in the dungeon, which is really funny. And it's like mostly about menus, but there is just this assumption that creating menus out of like dungeon corpses. But there's this casual assumption that resurrection is like super easy, like as long as the person isn't totally digested, like no real time limit.
As long as you got a toe or something, right?
Yeah. Do we want to talk about the demon's very intense rape threat?
It's upsetting.
Yeah. I mean, I don't think it's outside of what a demon biker would do.
Right. No, I mean, I don't think my objection, I don't know if I have an objection, but if I do, it's not on the grounds that it's not realistic. I think it just feels like a very dark thing for this show to have. It doesn't feel like, I think that, spoiler alert, season 6 has a darker tone than the rest of the show, and I think this is like, oh right, that's what I'm watching.
Yeah, this would feel very out of place in like season 1 or 2.
Yeah.
I mean, tonally, like the tone of a biker gang, which is like breaking mailboxes and setting houses on fire. I mean, the tone is very like goofy, and it's like they're terrifying, but they're also like they're just miscreants. Like they're not the worst in the world. And then that's a sudden shift to then threaten to like rape someone. And will they do it? Yeah, it seems like they really will. Like the actors are really committed to the lines.
Yeah. And some of the dialogue, it reminds me of Firefly a lot. Because there's threats about the Reapers, about what they'll do to you. And then like, if we're very lucky, they'll do it in that order.
Right. Oh, yeah, that's right.
Joss is building up his threatening language skills. So Willow doing a spell that calls out the term fragilis and then makes the demons like knives break apart. Like if this was made in 2019 or 2020, which we're in now, I would say that this was an intentional call out about like fragile masculinity, but I think it happened by accident.
I like it though. It works.
Yeah.
I really like seeing Tara axe a demon in the back. It's nice to see Tara rack up some kills.
Yeah, it's her first.
And there's the tower. We talked about it briefly, but like that tower is still there.
Yeah.
I wonder about like just the sort of who has responsibility for that. If somebody suddenly builds a tower, like who's responsible for that? It's obviously an unlicensed construction. Like, does the city's gonna have to have it taken down? I'm not super shocked they didn't get it down in the first 3 months. I feel like most towns I've lived in would take
somebody
that long.
owns that lot. And at some point, the person who owns that lot is going to find out this tower was built, and they're going to be liable for any danger that happens from it, right?
Right.
Also, this is just, don't, make this comment because I know, but on Hulu, I was watching this episode on Hulu, and every time they showed Buffy's point of view from looking down at the ground, there's somebody in like a red hoodie or something walking around the corners.
Yes.
Really?
It's every single time. And it was like driving me crazy. And I know. Don't give me shit about it.
Oh, I noticed that too. And I'm like, this is so weird. Because it's not like they didn't know that guy was in the shot. I mean, yes, they were filming for 4x3 still, but it was just like, yeah.
Yeah. It was so consistent.
But there was only one person. Now the other thing was like there was one person mucking around down there. Like that person really felt like someone who like was not even on set. Like it felt like a person they couldn't control.
Man, I'm just calling out the emotional scenes this episode because they're all so strong. Mm-hmm. But the scene where Dawn is trying to convince Buffy not to kill herself and to live for me is both amazingly selfish bargaining with a suicidal person and like just an interesting, strong scene. But it feels very weird, and it works whatever because we want it to work. But I don't even want to joke about suicide counseling because I don't know anything. But this does not feel like the appropriate way to bring someone back from the edge. It felt really wrong and raw. I mean, it's like like live for me. Just a real tough sell for me. I appreciate that Buffy's being brought back, but for the two emotionally powerful scenes before this conclusion I didn't like. I felt like I don't know what the other conclusion is, by the way, and I'm not a TV writer and I'm not going to rewrite the show. I'm happy that Buffy is back on the show. That's all great. But this scene feels really flat, and I'm sad how flat it is because there should be a lot more going on, and given the build from the two previous scenes, and it doesn't feel appropriate. I mean, maybe Buffy she thinks she's in hell. She's going to try and kill herself to go back through the demon dimension. Maybe that's what's going through Buffy's mind. But like the Dawn trying to convince her that it isn't, and like to come be with her, and then of course the apocalypse of the tower. I mean, I get the like Buffy's very responsive to violence and in this episode, even though she's not really communicating. Like she's always good at violence. She's going to rescue her sister in some way to like bring her back. That feels kind of like where the show is going with this. But the artificialness of the climb and that setup, like that tower's weird. That tower scene is weird. It feels off. It works in that way that it completes the arc, but it just feels a bit off, and it's hard to articulate why.
Thanks, Mike. Yeah, I do like the thing of like Buffy doesn't seem to comprehend at all what's going on until like she has that one moment where she recognizes Dawn, and I felt like that's good emotional acting. And I thought Michelle Trachtenberg's emotional acting this whole episode was great. Like she was really making me feel. She's good at she's taken over that former Willow role of like the person you feel when they cry, right? But yeah, how is jumping to that cable safer than walking down the stairs?
It doesn't seem like it was. Like it seems like it didn't work out. Like because she pretty much free falls on the rope for a while, and then she stops, and then she free falls again. And so like I think it's only down to her being the Slayer and then cushioning Dawn's fall with her body that I think it's basically didn't work.
Crazy move, Buffy. That's crazy.
I mean, give her a break. She just busted out of a coffin.
Yeah. Operating at pure instincts, grabbing the wire.
I think I don't know. It just seems like Buffy was the one who, like, mere presence destroyed the tower. Like, the tower was doing just fine. It was going to last 100 years. And then, like, the supernatural Buffy shows up, and then the tower just crumbles. Like, it's a great metaphor.
Yeah. Don't bring Buffy to the third floor of any building at this point.
Yeah.
Because she will rock it.
It's like the world was in chaos without the true champion that is Buffy. Like you know, it's like a medieval fable, right? Like the world has been overrun by thieving bandits and dragons and all manners of you know horrible creatures while the champion was gone, and now Buffy's back, and yeah.
You know what? I want to revisit that scene one more time because I think that what I want from this episode is I want Willow and Buffy to have a confrontation about what it means to resurrect her, and that didn't happen this episode. And instead, we got the Dawn versus Buffy thing here, and it's just not as strong. And or like Dawn and Buffy as sisters, which I mean, it's a believable relationship. The acting is great, but just doesn't have like the build up emotionally that clearly there needs to be this Willow Buffy confrontation. Like we want to see it. And it just didn't happen this episode. And I feel deprived of that in that, like what's bringing her back to life. Cause also like Dawn didn't decide to bring bring Buffy back to life. Willow did. Right? Okay, you guys are just being quiet. Okay.
No,
well, I was going to say, I know we've already litigated this, but that Buffy does have a sister. But they were like, I kept thinking through this. I kept thinking through this that, oh yeah, but Dawn's like, you're my sister, and all these things.
Questions for the group.
All right, your friends resurrect you. How does that make you feel?
Grateful.
Yeah.
I'm going on record. If I die and you guys have the opportunity, go for it. I mean, I realize that I would like if you guys get the logistics figured out. Please don't resurrect me in a coffin, buried underground. But other than that, yeah, fucking go for it, guys.
Bring me back, dog.
Right.
So this is circumstances where like I don't know, you had some accident or something, and Travis actually is there to like save you, and we're like, no, Travis.
He wants to be resurrected. He wants to die, and then he wants to be resurrected.
If there's an urn of whatever, and
Osiris.
yeah, if one of you can resurrect me by vomiting a snake, I would expect you to do so.
Yeah, I mean that seems like a small price to pay to bring someone back to life.
Yeah, I mean, don't vomit a snake if it's not going to help. Don't do that.
I don't know.
Its own sake.
Vomit a snake on a dare for sure. I don't know. I feel like, if I've been dead like an hour maybe, but 3 months.
3 months? This is like the Zeppo. This is like the Zeppo thing.
3 months.
Yeah. Like if I've been dead 3 months.
You don't have to worry about catching up on your podcast? Like what's the minus 3 months too long?
What's the date today? Oh my God.
I've been a corpse for too long, man. I'm used to being a corpse at that point.
Longer is better. You get to find out about like the new computers and stuff.
The world's only getting
right.
worse. Don't bring me back.
I fully expect that if Dennis gets resurrected, he's going to have weird corpse things that is going to just really just be on his mind all the time. Like that's in his DNA.
John just can't wait to go to the Consumer Electronics Show of the future.
Yeah, this shit's too slow for me.
Now you guys are all laughing at when I said I want to be cryogenically frozen for like 400 years. Now how smart does that idea sound like?
Yeah,
It's basically resurrection in the future.
it's true.
Oh my god. I just saw some manga. I mean, whatever, manga's always doing that. So, but where a guy gets frozen for a few years because he has a terminal illness, and they're like, "We'll figure it out in the future. Don't worry about it." Goes under, comes back. He's the only man left alive. You know, you're like, that makes sense. I thought that was what was happening. But okay, so this is maybe along the same lines. But under what circumstances is it okay to resurrect someone?
All.
Yeah,
Okay.
the ones in which you can.
Yeah.
Oh, it's the only limitation of like, can we do it? Great, then we'll do it.
I guess we're kind of like the evil scientists in an Aliens movie of can we, should we? Yes.
Yeah.
Yes, we
I
can.
mean, I guess there should be some consideration maybe for as to like, who are we resurrecting? Like, if you had the opportunity to resurrect Hitler, I don't know, maybe not.
He hasn't faced punishment.
Yeah, fair. Yeah.
Let's
Oh,
resurrect
what?
him.
Resurrect people to put them in jail? To put them on trial? That's pretty fucked up. The zombie trials.
That's super interesting. That's super weird.
What if it's a situation where it's like a simulacrum of you, but you know the real you is dead and gone?
I feel like we're just writing Black Mirror episodes as we talk.
I mean, I think like the hell on earth of putting people on trial because there is. So like I like the atheist version of this. This is so dark, right? The atheist version is there's nothing happens when you die, but you resurrect someone only to punish them because there's no hell. So you literally create hell in order to extend their punishment. That is effed up. That's amazing. That probably, if that doesn't exist as a Black Mirror episode, wow. And yes, of course, Hitler, but also everyone. Everyone who dies before there's any justice. You just have some justice-obsessed, crazy doctor who's like, more justice. You're welcome back to Earth. Yeah, right this way.
On a completely different note, there's a moment in this episode where Xander makes a reference to the existence of NORAD, and then no one knows what he's talking about. And he's like, I need more male friends because women have never heard of NORAD. I don't really get that. But is this a thing you've experienced at any point in your life where you're like, all my friends are the same gender, I need different gender friends?
Sometimes I experience that on this podcast.
Yeah.
I love you guys.
I've been through that a little bit lately, for sure, where I feel like I'm going to say mostly female friends, but where I have mostly female friends. But I just notice it, but I'm not like, I need a man friend in my life. Like, no,
Yeah.
This is great. I chose this on purpose. These are trustworthy. These are mostly trustworthy people. This is great.
Yeah, I feel the same. Outside of this podcast, most of my friends are female. It's
Yeah.
pretty solid.
Almost all my work colleagues are female. Or rather, women.
Let's go on to themes of deep stuff.
Deep stuff.
So one thing that caught my eye was Tara was saying to Willow, like, maybe it just wasn't meant to be that we resurrect Buffy. It probably didn't work because it wasn't meant to work. And, this maybe it wasn't meant to be sort of thing, I think is a horrible thing to say, no matter who's saying it. So, like, if you're saying it to yourself, like I have a student who constantly does this. She's really bright, but like as soon as her work becomes difficult, she's always like, well, I guess it wasn't meant to be that I'll finish my homework. And I'm like, nope, that's not how that works. It's entirely up to you if you finish your homework. Just try harder. So I feel like that's this self-sabotaging thing that certain people do. But it's also even worse if you say it to your friend. If you're like, oh, well, you didn't get that job. I guess it wasn't meant to be. It's a dick move.
No,
Don't
this
say that.
is a callback to something you've already talked about, John.
Is it?
What I'm
Have I already brought this up?
You've already brought this up before. So I'm like, John is like just waiting for these moments of someone's like, it's not meant to be. And he's like, no, that's BS. That's the worst thing you could tell someone. Remember, we talked about this whole email chain where somebody got the promotion. You're like, congratulations. I guess this was meant to be. As like a backhanded compliment.
Yeah.
And I saw that,
well,
like, John
I guess I'm
still
consistent.
hates this phrase.
It's one of John's triggeries. It's like if the show ever brings up guilt, I'll be like,
That's not guilt. Let Dennis St. John tell you what guilt is. But I'm so on board. I'm like, this is such a crappy thing for Tara to say.
I mean, to me, it spoke to the fact that like Tara was never 100% on board with this resurrection to begin with.
Yeah, I think the thing that Tara is saying is she's pretending to do the "it wasn't meant to be" thing, which is a way of consoling somebody just by saying it's out of your control. What in this particular case, what she's really saying is this was in your control, and you really shouldn't have done any things.
And thank God nothing happened.
Yeah.
We also didn't talk about the zombie joke that Anya makes of Buffy eating brains. But oh well.
That's a good one.
Oh man, a zombie slayer would be pretty badass.
Man, that's even like, yeah, that's crazy because where's she going to get the brains? Whoa, that's iZombie. That's a different show on the WB.
Yeah.
10 years later. iZombie. I love the obvious symbolism between with Buffy breaking out of the dirt and the earth, just like how all the vampires rise up that we've seen, like Angel rise up out of the ground and put the hand up. And
Yeah.
I'm like, Buffy the Vampire Slayer came back. Pseudo vampire like it's great.
Yeah.
It's very interesting. And the question is like, man, now that she's resurrected, is she gonna have a soul? You know, like there's like fun little things you could have, you know, like how different is Buffy gonna be now? You know, if you do the whole parallel between human to vampire, blah, 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 blah. So
Yeah, and I thought briefly that she was going to another Slayer would be created, but I've already had this argument now, so the answer is no. But because she died, and I'm like, oh, another Slayer will happen. Like, nope, Faith is actually the Slayer now, so it's sorted.
Yeah, Faith is the official Slayer, really, right?
But
somebody tell the Watchers Council.
Somebody tell that biker gang.
I like the thing of it paralleling vampirism, and it brings up things of like now Buffy has this one really insane thing in common with all vampires, right? It's like, does this affect her job? Does it not?
Yeah, I mean, in theory, yeah. Like all vampires were once inadvertent victims and then had no control about being brought back to life. Admittedly, they don't have a soul, so that's like the whole crux of the matter. But yeah, she has more in common now with Angel than ever.
Yeah. I just want to call it that. So this episode to me like symbolizes the end of episodic television forever, because it's like this is really like the beginning of like entire episodes that instead of like being a beginning, middle, end are like just a scene, just one long scene, and not just for Buffy. I mean for everything. This is it. Goodbye, episodic television. I miss you.
What's the air date on this episode?
Air date October 2nd, 2001.
Sounds about
R.I.P.
right.
That ends themes and deep stuff. Let's move on to recommendations.
Recommendations.
All right, so first we're going to start with biker gang movies. So you got to go with the Marlon Brando classic, The Wild One. That's, you know, the famous, like, what are you rebelling against? What do you got?
That's a pretty good Marlon Brando.
Thank you. And I'm also going to recommend, so I'm going to go light on the biker gang movies. I'm just going to recommend that. And the modern exploitation movie, Frankenstein Created Bikers, from this director, James Bickert. I don't know how to pronounce that last name. Jean-Luc Picard. So this guy is doing like kind of modern exploitation movies, and I really enjoy them. Frankenstein Created Bikers is like this biker gang gets killed, and then a scientist resurrects them as corpses, and it's awesome. And it's got that modern bad movie combination of Tristan Risk and Ellie Church. Anytime they're in a movie together, I like it. They were in Harvest Lake together, and the movie Mania. I think I've recommended both those movies on this podcast before. And then for the Buffy breaking out of her own grave, I'm going to recommend the classic House of Usher with Vincent Price, based on the Poe book, Poe story. If you're going for breaking out of being buried alive, you got to go for Poe at some point. And then I also recommend Kill Bill Volume 2 for Uma Thurman getting buried alive. It's a good scene. And then I'm going to jump into some honorable mentions. Not really Rex, but worth mentioning. The biker gang movie Hell Ride, because it has the actor who played Jesse in the first couple episodes of Buffy as a biker. Short Circuit 2, not really a recommendation, but Buffy Bot being torn apart. There's a kind of sad scene in Short Circuit 2 where Johnny Five is beaten to death. And he screams,
but then he goes
"No,
into a Radio
I'm
Shack and
alive."
builds himself back up.
And then, honorable mention to Star Trek Insurrection. Not really a recommendation, but the demons look similar.
Whatever. That's an okay movie.
And if you like biker gangs that aren't human, I recommend the comic The Humans by Tom Neely. It's about a world of... it's like Planet of the Apes meets like The Wild One. It's a world where it's all apes, and there's a biker gang called The Humans. It's super good. All right. That's what I got. Does anyone else have anything? Did I miss anything?
What about the Ryan? Isn't Ryan Reynolds in a movie where he's buried alive?
It's called
Isn't it just
Buried.
called Buried?
Wasn't there that Ozploitation biker game movie? But I can't remember the name.
Yeah. I felt like I couldn't recommend that because I haven't seen it, but
Okay.
we could talk. Yeah, we saw a trailer
Yeah.
for it.
It looks really problematic from the trailer.
Virgin predictions.
Michael, your current overall accuracy for the series as a whole is at a 61.47. Whereas for season 6 so far, you're at a 75%. So let's see what's going to happen. We've only got a couple here to talk about. First of all, Michael, you predicted, going back to season 4, episode 10, you predicted that Tara will cast a spell to save Willow, which she very specifically does here. She casts the Firefly spell, right? And also the whooshy fire spell that makes the demons back off. So that is confirmed.
It's amazing it took that long, right?
It is. It took an entire 2 seasons for that to happen.
Gross, weird. You'd think that would happen immediately. They're both witches.
And then similarly, at the end of season 4, Michael, you predicted that Tara and Willow will do a combined spell that will break the world in a good way. And I was thinking about this one. Maybe we could have talked about this last episode. But resurrecting Buffy is something that Tara and Willow and Xander do together. Does it break the world in a good way? I think in a way it kind of does. What do you think?
Well, I don't know if it breaks the world really, because we know resurrections have happened before. Wolfram and Hart
True.
can do them.
Okay, true.
Travis, what do you think?
It definitely does break the world in a good way, but my exact reasoning for why it breaks the world in a good way cannot be discussed until a later episode.
Okay. So we'll leave this one open then, and we'll come back to it. Travis, do you have an episode in mind that don't have to say what it is, but you have an episode in mind when you want to talk about this?
Musical episode?
Okay, we can talk about it then. Sounds good. Very good. So with that only one confirmation, Michael,
There's another.
Oh, is there another? Oh, there is another.
5:15.
Yes. Okay. Very good. Season 5, episode 15, Michael, you predicted that Buffy will fight the Buffy bot. Dennis, I'm assuming that you want to deny this one?
Yeah. Buffy bot is dead. It never happened.
So this is the end of the Buffy bot, we're saying.
Oh, that's the
And
end? I
this
guess
is
it's pretty
denied.
dramatic. Yeah.
I wasn't going to talk about
slap
this
and
one
paste
because
job won't bring it back this time.
Is this the end
Yeah.
of the Buffy bot?
I mean, she's drawn and quartered.
I guess I just can't remember. I guess I can't remember. All I know is that Spike has the Buffy bot pieces at the end, and that's why it was suspicious.
He keeps the leg.
Okay, well, with one confirmation and one denial, then your overall accuracy, Michael, actually goes down to a 61.4.
Damn, that's a big drop.
Your accuracy was one of them a super prediction? Is that why that happened?
No, I think it's just because
No.
we only have like 4 predictions.
Okay, and then your accuracy for this season, for season 6, goes down from 75 to 70%.
I feel like the Buffy bot has been horribly treated, and I think in the future we're gonna, just like we're gonna close all the zoos, we're also gonna apologize to all the AI, all of the intelligent robots that were horrifically dismembered, had sex with against their programmed, and then they ignored the things that came out of her actual mouth when she was clearly doing some kind of deep learning. Great. I'm sad about Buffy bot. All right, I have new predictions. Prediction 1. Anya and Xander aren't going to get married. I thought they were about to announce this thing. They keep putting it off. There's never going to be a right time. This is not happening. I know I'm topsy-turvy on that. That's just the way this thing goes, and that's just how my brain works. Prediction 2. Buffy will forgive Willow for resurrecting her. She will use her words, and she will say, "It's okay for resurrecting me." Something like that. Don't use that as a quote. I don't know how she's going to say it. It'll be flippant, but then also emotionally sincere. Giles returning next episode. This world's gone crazy. Giles needs to step in and have a little leadership. Yes, Buffy, but also Dad needs to come back from England. Come on. 4. Willow is going to say out loud that not she didn't. Sorry, she made a mistake bringing Buffy back to life. Maybe she's done that, but that's gonna get driven home again in this season. Super prediction: Buffy versus Willow battle is happening this season. I know I just said Buffy versus Buffy bot. That'd be great. You know, it'd be really great. Buffy versus Willow. And I want to be clear, if Buffy's body is if she's possessed or taken over, vice versa. If Willow's possessed or taken over, if her physical form is fighting Buffy's physical form, that is a battle.
Michael, I don't understand why you feel the need to cover all these bases.
The reason is Dennis St. John, attorney at law.
Technically, that was a Willow from a different dimension, so it's not her body. Just
If it
kidding.
looks
That's
like Willow,
that's not a spoiler. That's just it.
If it looks like Willow, it's Willow. And Buffy, and if it looks like Buffy, it's Buffy. And if the Buffy and Willows are fighting, it's a fight. That's all I got.
So if the Buffy bot fights Vampire Willow, does that
Technically,
count?
that is a Buffy Willow battle. Yes.
If they build a new Buffy bot.
I mean, I feel like I have my marching orders on fan fiction now.
Buffy bot versus
What
Vampire
else happens
Willow.
with that Buffy bot?
That's already happened with the Buffy bot. There's not even room for someone to implicate or imply that people have sex with Buffy bot. It's happened. That's what it's made.
With that, I think that's the podcast. It's been a weird episode. Thank you guys for listening through it. I've been Dennis St. John. You can find me online. I'm Dennis Comics. That's DENIS COMIX. That's my Instagram. It's my Twitter, and it's my .com. You can also listen to me on the Nevers podcast sometimes. And I'm on. You can read my credits on Snoopy in Space. And I want to thank you one and all for listening and talking to us at Buffy Virgin. You can visit our website, buffyvirgin.com, for links to our blog, YouTube, and Twitter and Instagram. Reach out. We love to hear from you. And don't forget to rate and review us on the podcast listener of your choice. And we'll see you in hell.